Let's start off with just an update from the Australian Open. Carlos Alcaraz's bid to complete a career Grand Slam met major resistance at the Australian Open just a short while ago after he battled back from a breakdown in a titanic opening set against Yannick Hanfmann, the German. The Spaniard separated from the world number 102 in the ATP rankings to record his second straight sets victory of the Melbourne fortnight, 7-6, 6-3, 6-2. The top seed will next meet qualifier Michael Zheng, or 32 number, I think this the 32nd seed, and that will be Konetan Mute in the third round. Well, the 22-year-old is seeking to become the youngest man in history to complete the career Grand Slam in singles and the youngest in the Open era to win 7 major singles titles. So that's an update there from the Australian Open. But we're staying with racket sports. Professional squash in South Africa is poised for a significant boost in 2026 with the introduction of a comprehensive national tournament series designed to create meaningful opportunities for players to earn world ranking points and on home soil. The proposed series, sponsored by ASSORE, will feature 11 PSA Open tournaments staged throughout the year, with dates to be finalized in consultation with Squash South Africa to ensure alignment with the national calendar. So to chat about this, we are joined by Craig van Der Wath, who is the director of the ASSORE Series. Craig, thanks so much for joining us. I think let's quickly just touch on the history of squash in South Africa, because if I have my research correct, at one point in time we were quite considered pioneers globally, registering the first national body, really involved in cementing squash as a formidable sport, not just in South Africa, but globally. Then obviously apartheid and the sanctions occurred. We had that reintroduction to global squash. And then I remember my parents playing it. I remember it being quite a popular school sport. And then all of a sudden, who plays squash nowadays? What's happened over the last couple of years?
It's an interesting story, actually, and thank you very much for having us on the show to put this out there. The squash is a founder member of the World Squash Federation. So Squash SA was one of the 5 original founding members. And that's how long the history goes back. So we did have a squash boomed worldwide in the 70s and 80s. And then there were many other things that competed for people's time. And all sports, new sports sprang up, new interests came up, but squash has survived. And with the recent inclusion in the Olympics, it's a revival. So squash in schools and universities and clubs will now be better placed in terms of our sporting structure from government.
I think, or perhaps I'm incorrect on this, do you think it still carries a little bit of an elitism, sort of perception tag? It's still, played purely in clubs, and so perhaps access is not, as accessible as a sport, or is it more accessible nowadays?
That's a perception. Okay. There are courts out there. There's many courts out there. There's a lot of easy access to courts. A lot of schools have courts. Schools have been built in areas. Our development program, particularly in Gauteng with the goalie squash program, is fantastic. There's courts in parts of Soweto where we're trying to get them refurbished at the moment because they've been so well used. There's holes in the walls. And we've got some rising stars. One of our top junior players in South Africa is Savato Nkuna, and he comes from a little school court in Soweto where the holes in the walls are in desperate need of repair.
So let's talk about this ASSORE series, why it's so exciting, what it means for players in South Africa, and you're also using it to try and attract international and foreign players to South Africa. Is that correct?
It is. We want to showcase South Africa. We want to show the world squash players what a wonderful venue this is to play. We've hosted events like the World Masters before, and we are applying to do so again. This series will make a huge difference to our players, enabling them to compete in South Africa instead of bearing the cost of travelling overseas, which is enormous for our young players.
And that's for points in order to try and qualify for the Olympics as well, right?
Partly for the Olympics, but for all other events. We go to World Team Championships in juniors and seniors, both men and women. So it's very important for the development of squash. And if we don't bring the standard of squash up and get our top players that little extra push in the world rankings, then we might risk our opportunity to go and have representation in the Olympics.
Now, the partnership's been 20 plus years in the making. Briefly tell us about that.
Well, ASSORE saved a club where I work, Parkview Squash Centre, and that's where most of the events will take place. So we're very excited that after such a long history with a company that does so much for communities and for squash in this case, it's just a wonderful opportunity for the next generation of players.
How's squash competing with paddle? And I ask this because do you think enough people understand the game, are able to watch the game, and therefore there's spectator value and therefore there's interest from a commercial perspective?
We're under no illusions that it's quite difficult to watch and follow, but with the availability of streaming, the increased technology in cameras, if you watch some of the PSA live TV that's well filmed and the world's top players, it's incredibly good to watch. We also understand that clips of those incredible feats of the athleticism of the top players, it needs to be shown in slow motion and explained. We've simplified the scoring, so you no longer have to serve to win the point. At the conclusion of every rally, someone gets a point.
Okay, so I suppose
there are moves to make it more sort of viewer-friendly.
Yes. Just coming back to the prize money, I think that's also an important thing. I know you want to start somewhere, but it obviously has to jump quite drastically over the next couple of years in order to make it something that's attractive, again, not just for local players, but international players as well.
That's true. We do have a plan to start our tournaments with a series of 4 satellite tournaments that our players can get into. Players starting have no ranking points, and therefore they won't get into the big events. So the plan is to grow our series of tournaments in line with our players' ranking improvements.
Okay.
We want to do this for the development of squash in South Africa first and foremost. We bring foreign players here to assist with our players in doing that, but it's largely based on our players developing.
Well, our time has run out, unfortunately, but thanks so much for coming to share, this exciting news and what's happening with squash in South Africa. And as I just mentioned, I recall playing or going to go and watch my dad play. Perhaps there'll be a resurgence with kids watching their parents play. They therefore start playing again, and who knows, we'll be able to produce some Olympic athletes, as we mentioned, as the sport is included in the 2028 Olympics that's going to take place in Los Angeles. I've been chatting to the director of the ASSORE Series, a new exciting series, Craig van Der Wath, about this. Let us know what you think about this. Did you play squash? Do you play squash? I'd love to see those comments on our X.com account.